Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for an earlier workshop this week. We're so happy you're here. On behalf of everyone at Oxy Arts, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm happy to introduce Kyle Stephen, who is a co-curator of our We Live Memories of Resistance exhibition, and she'll be introducing the workshop and going from there.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Kyle, and I'm one of the curators of We Live Memories of Resistance, the current exhibition up at Oxy Arts. And today I'm thrilled to introduce you to Yunuen Rhi, who will be leading a special workshop on internal martial arts. In our gallery exhibition at Oxy, the artists explore past, both real and imagined. They mine historical archives, personal memories, ancestral forms of knowledge and survival, to reframe and reimagine our collective present and future. Yunuen's healing practice approaches the idea of collective memory from the side of the body, using it as a conduit for accessing ancestral knowledge and self and community healing. Today's workshop will provide an introduction to Rhi's internal self-healing practice based on Baguazhang martial arts. It's a 1-hour theory and movement-based workshop appropriate for all levels. You won't need any special materials or props, and some basic standing postures will be taught and skills will be provided, so you can continue your connective practice beyond this workshop. Also, after the workshop, Yunuen is going to stay by and answer questions from participants about the practice, so do stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining us today, and please welcome Yunuen Rhi.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, such a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Kyle, for that intro. And yeah, Maricela and everyone at Oxy Arts, also at In Plain Sight. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. For those who don't know about the In Plain Sight project, that was, well, it was a grand project that this is a continuation of. So we had text written in the skies flying over detention center sites and immigration offices throughout the US. And that was a project spearheaded by Castles and Rafa Esparza here from LA. And so, yeah, I'm very happy to participate in the programming afterwards. And I think this is very timely. So yeah, I have a presentation here set up that we are going to start. Yeah, I can't see it for some reason, but I'll make sure there. Okay. Yeah, so first I want to acknowledge that we are on Tongva tribe lands. And so just as that, just give a moment for that, because we are going to talk about also that interconnection to the land, and also acknowledging the keepers of these lands. This is very important because we're talking about martial art philosophy in movement and motion. And so this is part of the motion too, an honorability of being. And so, yeah, we can change the slides. And so thank you for that. And yeah, so I have my introduction. I want to as well introduce you to my masters, my teachers, because all of this information came from somewhere, right? So when we're not honoring that, then there's a big problem, right? And so that's where it can turn into misleading information, appropriation. So this is the reason I always introduce my teachers first and everything that I do, whether it's this kind of presentation or my classes. And well, yes, I come from good people. I come from Mexico, Mexico City. I grew up in California, so I'm a migrant myself. And a lot of the roots that I have been projected onto some of the teachers that I've encountered in my life. So my first teacher here in the presentation, Don Erasto Camacena, is a medicine man from the Mixteca region that I met in San Diego. He was operating also seed processing company, a garden that he established to grow food, well, not foods, but more herbs for the healing of his community. And this is how I met Don Erasto, through some work that I was doing in my background, that is anthropology. in San Diego, working with language revitalization with migrants from Oaxaca. So this is where I met him. We hired him for some workshops, and then Liu Shuyang is my first Baguazhang teacher that I met in Beijing in 2008. So I have been training in Baguazhang internal martial arts since then. So this collision of worlds, which was this meeting that we had in San Diego in 2010, had to do with the interconnections that also are binding me to and across the border in different places in the world. And also in the same story that I'm going to, teach back to you now about like why I'm doing this and how it relates to the self-healing aspects of intergenerational trauma. My current teacher, Li Bahua. Oh, sorry. Can you go back to the slide before? So that was like those two up there is my first teachers. Then my current teacher is Li Bahua, fourth generation Magui Baguazhang lineage holder. He's a grandmaster of this practice, and I've been training intensively with him and continue to train with him since 2015. He currently lives in Japan. And we are trying to bring out this practice to the world because it is a human legacy. I'll explain a little bit more why. Yes, next slide. So yeah, I like to talk about the idea of permanence in our actions, because then that is going to outline what we're doing or where we're going, right? So this is, you've probably heard like this idea of for the next 7 generations, right? So somebody had a prayer for us today in our existence. So that was 7 generations ago. Somebody set up something for us to have something good today. So as such, we have the responsibility to maintain that and to push that forward in our life project. So that's going to go 7 generations ahead, right? So if we're thinking that we're only going to be doing something for ourselves in this lifetime, I just want to buy a house and a car and have a family and that's it, and then just have enough money for like my children or grandchildren, then that's kind of short-sighted. So if we're thinking that way, then all our projects in our life are going to be just limited in that aspect. But if you think of like extending yourself 7 generations from now, maybe your projects will be having that idea too. They will be maybe grander, right? They will have more substance. And so this is the idea. This is the important aspect of what, a cornerstone of what we're going to do in the healing of intergenerational trauma. So in our deliberation, we must consider the impact of our decisions on the next 7 generations. This is from the Great Law of the Iroquois Confederacy. And I like this picture. I chose this picture because it has to do with the 13 indigenous grandmothers who came together at one moment, and they here are praying with the Dalai Lama. I know one of them, I knew one of them, one of the 13 indigenous grandmothers from Mexico, Julieta Casimiro. She actually did a mushroom ceremony for the Dalai Lama when they went over there. So these interconnections are working. They're at play already. And so we just have to tap into them, right? So because there's so many realities created in a structure that was meant for us to be controlled, we are under a control, under a controlled setting, under a controlled education, and under a controlled indoctrination, then how are we going to escape that? We have to recognize and tap into our roots and know that there are prayers at play and also there are undercurrents at play. So the next slide. And so I'll talk about the undercurrents in a moment, but I want to also give a moment to talk about the cataclysm, right? This moment of trauma, where that sets into ourselves, where that sets into a generation, a lineage. Yeah, so I actually don't consider trauma as trauma because I believe that in modern psychiatry, the way that it's set up, it can be re-traumatizing. And so this is maybe a different perspective of what everyone's used to. Go to like a psychotherapist and have some therapy and get aligned. Yet that exists in a certain structure. So for me, in my personal life, it hasn't worked because I had so many questions, and that maybe some of these systems didn't address. So this is why I had to seek out my own roots and go back, for example, to Mexico. I grew up in California, but I went back to Mexico to study art conservation at a moment. So I got to, in that way, tap into my roots, understand what happened in that disconnection between the generation of my parents who grew up in Mexico and myself who I grew up in the US. So what happened with that? I had to explore that. I had to understand what were those parts of me that were dropped off on the way. So I went back to pick them up. And then as such, I went back also to Asia. I went to China, and I went to Korea. And sometimes I consider the roots of Korea something from China. So somehow I was very drawn to China, even though my grandfather was Korean. My ancestry is also Korean. And so that's why I went to both of these places, and also Europe, right? So in this kind of exploration of myself, it was always reconnecting somehow with my roots. And I find that this was maybe at first identity crisis growing up in the US was severe, but it led me to something else. And so this is why I see somehow trauma, which is set in through maybe migration, through childhood happenings, all of these experiences that touch our lives. We can call it as trauma, or we can stay with that, or we can surround ourselves with just thinking that we have to resolve that. But what if we go beyond that and think that is a chance to understand something in our deeper self, right? Because in reality, we're just fractals. And so when we're going into all these moments, there might be other stories that can be told. So I have this slide here, which is the fall of Tenochtitlan, Mexico. And you can see here there's three figures. There's like Hernán Cortés, there's Moctezuma, there is Malintzin-Tenepal. What was happening at that moment? Like, what was the alignment of everything that something happened? Something happened, and sometimes we just focus on like the battles or wars or something like that. Especially in mainstream history, we're just taught like this way to see things. But I see that there's other spirits happening and other things at play there, right? And the interesting part about the conquest of Mexico, the invasion of Mexico, is that there was a lot of things happening, and there was already knowledge of what was going to happen, and there was oracles being consulted as well. So the oracles had told the people not to fight, and so because the basis, and this is a story I have from ceremony. I also, part of my work in anthropology led to ceremonial work, especially in the peyote tradition. As a translator, as a guide to take elders from the US to Mexico, especially, and then back to like Apache lands, the information crossing it back and forth across the border. So my point here was that in this interplay, this cataclysm that occurred, there was information that we can also see in a different way. One of those teachings that I received was that when the oracle was consulted and people acknowledged that the reasons that what we have today exists, like some of the traditions, have to do with people understanding that whoever came from across the seas in a violent way was like a child. And our mission here was to preserve the information. So if we would fight back and exterminate ourselves or exterminate all this knowledge and fight against like people that were maybe in a different development, then everything would be lost. So there was certain people, certain sages that would conserve this information by not fighting, by teaching other people, by teaching these people that sometimes came in this violent way. So there was a lot of information that was at play. And this is what I refer to the undercurrents rising. So there's information that was preserved. And it was a very difficult thing to understand. It might be difficult to express right now too, but this figure in the middle, they call her Malinche. She's Malintzin de Nepal. She was a disinherited Nahuatl princess. And as a Nahuatl princess, she was trained in warfare because that's how it was before. People were trained in many trades, right? So the cataclysm, if you can imagine the size of this cataclysm of prisoners from war becoming soldiers, coming to one of the greatest civilizations of humanity in Mexico. That was the cataclysm, right? And so the moment that happened, about 80% of Mexico died, okay, with the plague. So it wasn't the merit of a certain technology that overcame Mexico. It was a destiny, right? But it was a destiny then that is, if we accept it that way and think of what was kept in these capsules of time and these prayers of somebody praying for us 7 generations ago, is what we have to keep for our next 7 generations now. So in this understanding of preservation of information systems, preservation of knowledge, preservation of love and spirit, this is a way that we can start to break apart this harm that we're very much obsessed with in this culture of trauma. So this is this is just a little bit about how that played out. So if you can imagine, there's different perspectives of the conquest of Mexico, but if you read a little bit about Malintzin de Nepal, there's some of my professors that wrote about her in the 90s as a translator, as a war strategist. Then you can really start to see different dimensions of what was happening at that same time, as opposed to the mainstream history that we're being taught. Okay, so the next one. Okay, so this is where we get to the undercurrents, right? That I mentioned, the undercurrents that are at play now. So if there was these capsules of information that were set up for us 7 generations ago, how can we tap into them? And it's necessary right now, right? Because it seems like there's no way out, there's no way to run, everything is being controlled, everything is being managed, and we only have like this kind of this route, like a hamster, right? We only have this wheel or this wheel or this wheel, and it just seems that we can't get out of that. It's like a type of hell. But there are these undercurrents, so we need to urgently tap into them. And how do we tap into them? We are channels, we are mediums. We are mediums onto our spirit. We are also carriers of knowledge, of information within our DNA and our cells. If we are able to somehow go within and regain back that understanding of a medium that we are, a channel, this is one way to tap into it. So I have been working with Maria Sabina, priestess of the mushrooms. She's of the Santos Niños. She was the spearhead of the psychedelic movement in general, and she was also spearheading like LSD research at the time. And if you don't know her, you should look at a documentary about her. She's a very important figure that also housed or, you know, brought, like, gave mushrooms to a lot of artists at that time. And after that, like, those people took off in their careers in what they were offering to the world. Yet people forgot about her. They didn't come back and return that anything to her, right? So this is why it's so important to honor your teachers in whatever you do, you know. Don't skip them. Don't try to, always be good with that, right? Because this is sacred information being passed on. When we are strong in our lineages, then the whole lineage, the whole line will be strong for also the next 7 generations. So it's important that we are addressing that and we're returning to work with these kind of figures. So this is why I talk about Maria Sabina. And this is why I hold her near in my altars and in the work that I do. So I'll talk about, more about the undercurrents. When I came back to LA recently, like 3 years ago, I found that it was interesting that a lot of people here, like Chicano origin, where even if they didn't speak Spanish or something, like they had never been to Mexico, they were so connected to understanding their roots, like more than ever before. So I felt like this connection between these grandchildren and their grandparents it's stronger than these children with their parents. And that seemed very interesting to me. It was like a bridge of information, like that has its own life, you know? And just as this kind of passing of knowledge has its own life, so does intergenerational trauma has its own life. And this is something that I was able to discover through some collective healing work that we did here in Los Angeles, which is, it makes sense when you have a way of knowing language, different languages, indigenous languages. Oftentimes their principles are of relationality, right? So everything is alive. So of course, this trauma is alive in us, but also all these undercurrents are alive in us. So we have the power to choose where to set foot down and where to advance something, right? So, okay, next one. Yeah, so this is where the medium work came in, and this exploration that I call Huarache constellations. So it's a collective healing and medium methodology that I started actually at PAM, and we did several workshops in later on with obsidian workshops in Peter space. So I'm grateful for, you know, all those spaces at the moment that right now, you know, are closed. And I think that was a very important experiment, and that I've continued that container in different places. So that kind of brought in this altar that I was mentioning about Maria Sabina, but it also brought in like how to dialogue, you know, these deceased members of family that were like high spirits with other information systems, such as like family constellation therapy. I was always disturbed by that because it came from the Zulu. It came from a German missionary studying the Zulu and extracting the information, taking it back to Germany, creating a system that was dispersed around the world, but that never was accountable to the Zulu. And so this is why I thought, like, okay, all these people that were marginalized, even in healing work, like I want to be able to understand the broken parts, right? And how they can come together. So this work is like a 3-tier work, right? So it's a dialogue between the Maria Sabina and the Zulu tradition origins from family constellation therapy. And then it's also collective healing work. So everyone as a collective gets to understand what's the interplay of their actions, you know, in the roles that they choose. And then there's the individual self-healing work. So this is what I want to express to you today and hand down. This information that we're a medium, that we have the capability to upsurge the undercurrents that are within us. And we can do that by tapping into our ancestry. And this is going to be specific now. What ancestry, right? So this is the problem with some of the ways that we're approaching healing. We want to heal our parents or our grandparents, but that is kind of breaking the order of things. Like, who am I to heal something that happened to my grandmother? Like, I'm nobody to do that, or to put a judgment or an order in that, right? So how can we do that? So this is where it's important to step out of like maybe this way of healing, certain containers. Everything's good, nothing's bad. You know, certainly different modalities have helped people, so you don't want to discard that, but you want us to start to look at other places, especially healing modalities that have been in your lineage, right? Also, there's other forms of it. Like, for example, what I'm going to tell you has to do with ancestral healing that is inspired by West African traditions, who are experts at dialoguing with the deceased, right? So there's people that are very advanced in information. There's different scopes of just ways and perceptions to see the world, that if we are able to read and experience some of that, it has that power to give us more insight of how to tap into those undercurrents. So what I would tell you is that it's important that when you're thinking of healing and you want to connect to your ancestors, you want to connect to the ancestor in your lineage somewhere back, maybe long ago, you don't even know their names, that was a being of light, of pure light. Why? Because oftentimes we want to connect with our ancestors, but then we're calling in ancestors that are not necessarily healthy. They were not ancestors that reached enlightenment. And so when we're doing that, then we're drawing in those energies. And so then we're still stuck in that kind of, in that wheel, right? We're not advancing. So how can we, again, the idea of permanence, how can we have permanence in our actions for the next 7 generations? So how can the healing that we're doing today have a permanence for the next 7 generations? So it's not just, oh, I want to resolve my life today and then get rid of this, I don't know, ghost that I have from the past, you know. From what past? From like your early past, or is it like from the past like how long ago, right? So we want to be a container for ourselves and connect to an ancestor of light in one part of our lineage, right? And when we do that and we start to make a bridge, we can ask that one for help to help others in the path between them and ourselves, to gain that enlightenment. So we can set that prayer in motion, but it's not us crossing the order, right? The order and the hierarchies of our lineages. It's us talking to an ancestor of light, making a bridge so that we're able to heal all of these people and ourselves. So once all of those people are healed within our lineage, it could have been like 1,000 years ago, then we're going to be able to be strong ourselves. And then we're able to be like a channel that can continue and have a permanence for longer. So this is what I wanted to share about medium work. And then, yeah, you can change to this next one. And this is where we tap into information regarding the body. So I wanted to read this quote from Carlos Castaneda, but it also has to do with like this warrior pathway that I'm really exploring between the cultures of Chinese warriors, Chinese idea of like the philosophy of martial art philosophy, and also like Toltec wisdom. So there's something that I've been exploring in these, and this is what I'm trying to create, like really potent medicines, that can, give people some tools very fast. So this is one tool that I just shared with you, the idea of medium, the undercurrents, tapping into the undercurrents, connecting to the light ancestor in your work and whatever you're doing. Instead of trying to resolve things from like my mom and these people, it's important, yes, but remember a permanence, right? Okay, so the difficulty is to learn to perceive with your whole body, not just with your eyes and reason. The world becomes a stream of tremendously rapid, unique events. So you must trim your body and make it a good receptor. The body is an awareness, and it can be treated impeccably. So what does this mean? When we think of bad experiences, they're inserted inside the body, right? There's a body memory. How can we get that out of us? How can we cleanse that? Is there a way to cleanse it? So you can think of like going to the gym. Is that going to cleanse it? It might cleanse certain aspects of the body, but it might not tend to the deep aspects of the body, right? And we're certainly not dismembered like that, right? Because like when we do exercise, people think of, okay, I want to pump up like the glutes or something like that. I want to do this. I want to look aesthetically better in this aspect, but that's not the way the body works, right? We are a complete, how do you call it? Like a string of like fascia, like we're so much more, right? And then the fascia is interconnected to so much more. And then we have spirit inside. So how do we tend to that? What kind of practice can tend to that? So this is what I have been exploring. In Mexico, certainly a lot of this was destroyed. A lot of the warriors were tortured. They were exterminated. I don't know, a lot of bad things happened. Maybe some of that information got saved. In Mexico, I find like there's like different, places that it got saved, but it's hard to tap into. But there is that information, right? So one of the containers that was set up were ceremonies, right? So you can think of sweat lodge ceremony. Sweat lodge ceremony is the most important, most basic one, and most powerful, right? So it's this alchemy between water and fire. At Chichinoli, which is like the sacred mix that is going to, that's a way to cleanse. That's certainly a way to cleanse. So you can think that exists, right? So who set that up for us to have that? That's amazing, right? Again, that idea of permanence. It was somebody that had a plan for us and was keeping these systems in a time capsule that can continue for longer, right? So what are we going to do for the next people that are going to come, right? We want to have that permanence. And so in this path of like understanding the body, that's the aspect that drew me to do a practice, right? To start a practice, because nothing was working out for me. Like the gym, yoga, there was certain limitations of all that, and I didn't resonate with it. So that's where I started to do the internal martial arts. So we'll go to the next one. And so, I just want to say that again, we all came from somewhere. We all came from an earth-based wisdom. Those earth-based wisdoms had a connection. It had a movement, right? It had an interplay. It had foods. It had a culture around it. So we all came from somewhere, and there was many different types of movement practices around the world. There is still today, right? Somehow here in the West, we've been limited to think of like, like maybe just calisthenics, like very like these kinetic exercises that we are set up to just kind of the type of practices that we have. And then the mainstreaming of yoga, like this is kind of like, it just seems like that's the only options, right? But there's so many types of practices. and that we should start to tap into, right? So even like sculptures, we're not even trained as that. Like, you know, I'd go to the museums in Mexico as a child. It's like, oh, this is great, this is beautiful, but we don't have a connection to these, right? Because all of these sculptures had a place where they were at, and they had a purpose. And then they were portraying an aspect that was important, right? That was actually a practice. So what happened to those practices? We just see like the aesthetic quality of it. We're trained just in that way. But when we start to break open, what does that mean? Where was this practice? Who taught it? You know, there's so much. And then Kalari, the same thing. I have another one of those pictures is from the Voladores de Papantla in Mexico, like a practice that they do that for me is, again, something that has to do with channeling. All these practices have to do with channeling your information, your own spirit. So we can go to the next. Yeah, so the baseline is other ways of knowing beside the mainstream that we're indoctrinated in will enrich our understanding of the world. So it is imperative to reconnect now with source. What's the source, right? And that source, you can think of that being of pure light in a place in your lineage. Connect with that one. Start to ask it to show themselves to you, to recognize them, to dialogue. You can start to dialogue with them, right? And just can start to open up something about that information. So it's a whole process. And this is what I work with in some of my practices, the teaching of my internal martial art practice, but also in this container that I mentioned before called Huarache Constellation. So just think that when an elder dies, they take like a whole set of knowledge with them. And sometimes it's untapped. You can just think of like your grandmother, grandfather, like they die and maybe there's so many questions that you had that you didn't ask them. And that information is lost forever. The oral tradition of it, right? Even how they pass it on, the storytelling, the quality of that, all of that's being lost. So this is very sad. So this is why it's so important to start to also break out of our circles and connect also with our elders. Connect and take care of our elders, right? Address them, dialogue with them. Just like those ancestors of light that I was just mentioning, you can do that with elders today, you know, people that might be not here in 10 years. So this is all a full set of knowledge that is going to nurture that undercurrent, right? Because there's going to be resonances and we're going to start to recognize something. And then we'll start to have an intuition about what the way is. So yeah, this is also, people that are in these marginalized positions sometimes also have a resiliency that they've been sharing, right? So if you think of what happens if cities are wiped out, who's going to survive? People who know how to work the field, field workers, native people, all the Mixteco people, Zapoteco people that are growing our food. Those are the people that we need to acknowledge. Those are the people that we need to learn from. Those are our elders, right? And they still are working for us. And it's like heartbreaking because we are so clueless. Even as permaculturalists, we're clueless. Permaculturalists need to come together with these long-time agriculturalists to actually make a change happen. And they're still there, right? And they're going to be there because this is what they know is a permanence of work. They know that that's their path. So somehow, like people in these that have marginal roles in society are actually sources of revolution. That's where we have to start to connect to as well. And yeah, so we have this practice of internal martial arts. And what I was talking about, the impeccability of how to be an awareness. How are you an awareness, right? So this is how the practices help me. So Baguazhang, internal martial arts, is a practice that's based on this symbol that you might recognize. It's the yin yang inside the octagram. So this comes from the I Ching, which is a book of divination, a classic philosophy book in China. So you can think of the trigrams. The combination of all trigrams, 8 times 8 is 64. So 64 is what explains everything in the world. That's why we call it 8 trigrams palm, 64 trigrams palm, because all of the changes, like the whole system of the martial art is in a circle. And all of the changes from the I Ching are going to be different combinations of movement that are used for combat. And so this is why it's beautiful, because it's like a philosophy placed into a movement. It's like the yin yang in a body movement practice. And so, yeah, Baguazhang comes also from the merging of martial arts and Taoist circle walking. And then when you think of Taoist monks doing circle walking, these were different pathways to enter another realm, to enter a spiritual realm, right? And to, if you think of Taoists, they are the ones that were able to have a permanence in the body. So they're promoting this idea of longevity. They are the ones that are like, dying with like intact organs. So this is so rich in information, because it combines the martial art aspect, and it combines also this this circle walking. So it's a very one of the most mystical practices in China because of that. So in the circle walking, it's like a meditation. It's like movement, meditation and movement. But it's also activating all of the meridians at the same time in all of your body. So it's has that virtue to go within. And if you know a little bit of Chinese medicine, then it has to do with the 5 elements theory, right? So all of those 5 elements theory have to do, I think you can change to the next one, it might be in the next slide. Yeah, so 5 elements theory, you can see there's an interrelation between the 5 elements. So metal, water, wood, fire, earth. So all of those are interrelated, but all of those are also have a connection to a certain organ. So as we train, we're aligning everything. We're aligning not only these elements in ourselves, but also we are aligning and working on internal organs. So this is why the practice is so profound, because it's working at all of these levels. Okay, and okay, next one. Okay, so we're going to start to do some practice now. We'll have some time. So, okay. So the first and foremost, what I want you to engage in is the breathing, because this is the most important practice. And if you think of it now, this is the element, the metal rat year. Everything is about the lungs, right? So everything, even like what people are saying, like they can't breathe. Literally the fires, literally like police brutality, right? All of this, it's like we can't literally breathe. So this is already a resilience, right? So you have to start to breathe fully. I always say to people like, why don't we breathe fully if the oxygen is free, right? Why are we limiting our breathing? So you want to start to check yourself, check your breathing patterns. Why are you not breathing fully? What happens, in what moments are you not breathing fully? Because this is the key aspect, right? So we need to nurture ourselves. And what we're breathing? We're breathing in universal chi. We're breathing in universal chi and light. So we're filling ourselves with light in the body, right? So you want to start to do this. So we're going to start to do this and bring in that light into our body. You can even smile, huge. This is a Mayan breathing. Breathing in, bringing that oxygen into yourself, and then exhaling. When you exhale, it's this like blowing out this little feather into the universe. It's like an eternal exhale. If you have trouble breathing, focus on your exhale. That way you'll breathe in deeper. You can breathe in through the mouth and nose for now. Whatever is easier, just imagine this bone, the sphenoid bone. You can even breathe through your eyes. The ultimate way to breathe is like babies do, with all of your pores. Okay, good. We're taking one more. So if you do this practice for like 20 minutes or at least like 10 minutes a day, it'll already be a change in your life. Remember, it's like you're pouring this universal chi, light into your whole body. And so this is why you want to exhale longer than you inhale, with this permanence. So that you get to take out anything that's stuck inside, you're extracting it, right? Because when we're breathing this shallow, we're keeping it inside. So everything's being stuck, right? So how can we take this out? We need to exhale out slowly and continuously. So even exhale out from those areas that you have, I don't know, pain, discomfort, or a sense of something stagnant. You want to start to breathe into that area and exhale from it. There's people who have healed cancer. They have healed themselves from very bad situations just through breathing. So this is just the baseline, right? This is very important work. So this is one exercise you can do. You can change to the other one. Then I want to start to give you another understanding of like some Mexica points. So this is, again, this interrelation between the martial art aspect, Toltec wisdom. And we can go through this we're going to go through, these are the Mexica like chakra points. We're going to name them 3 times, okay? And then we're going to go up all of them to activate them, okay? So the first point is called Golot. It's like the root chakra, right? That's a scorpion. So you can think of Golot. So breathe in. We want to just name it, remember it, start to talk to it. Golot. Good. So now we're going to move up to the other point. It's called ilwitl. It's like feather. It can be like the womb or this lower part below the belly, below the navel. So ilwitl. So we'll name it 3 times, and you can put your hands on it. You can start to dialogue with it. Ilwitl. 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 Good, then we're going to move on to the next point. It's the stomach. They call it pantli, which means flag. It's everything social, right? So we say pantli. 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 Then we'll move up to the heart. They call it sochi, they call it flower. Sochi. 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 Good. Then we're going to dialogue with the topili. This is like a scepter, like, you know, like a king has a scepter, like a staff. So this staff is very important. It's your decision-making power, right? So we're gonna activate this point, remembering it, naming it. Topili. 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 Good. Next one, chalchiwi. So it's like a jade stone. The Mexicas would call the babies like my precious little stone. Why? Because we're born with a stone and brood. We have to polish it. That's our life mission, right? To polish it, to give it form. So again, thinking of that understanding of that permanence, what we want to leave for the next 7 generations. We want to make this bright, right? We want to make it shine every day, every second, right? So you can think of chalchiwit. We'll resonate here with chalchiwit. 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 Chalchiwi. Good. The last one. Tekpat. It's a knife. It's an opening in the crown chakra, right? So you think of Lama as the highest way to leave this world is through this chakra. Tekpat is your connection to the heavens. So you want to activate that point. Tekpat. And as you connect with it, you can raise it to the heavens, right? And relax. Tekpat. Tekpat. Good. Okay, so this is a way to activate these points, okay? Remember this concept of relationality. Everything is alive. Everything's alive inside of us. We're not objectifying the heart. We're not everything, we're dialoguing. You want to start to dialogue. As you do that, you can start to activate yourself, activate your power, activate those points. So I want to end today with teaching you a standing posture for my practice, internal martial art practice. It's a very powerful posture. It might need more instruction, but you can do it and you can already practice it. You know, I want to give you these tools so that you can start. And okay, so remember, there's the point. We're going to activate this Bantli, the center, and then the Taipatu point. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to relax. Relax. You're going to start melting down from the top of your head into your feet. Feel the whole weight being stacked. So you want to start to push up and inhabit your spine as if you were a 2-year-old, right? So remember these 2-year-olds that are like learning how to walk. Your head's high. Why? Because if you fall down, you won't fall down like this. You'll fall down standing up. So to be starting to inhabit your spine. So you're sitting down and then you're falling backwards. Okay. And then start to melt down. Everything starts melting down into your feet. Feel all the parts of your feet against the floor. As if you're melting through the feet down into the floor. So once you're feeling like this weight going down, try to start to fall back into your spine and then down. Almost like from the mouth of your stomach, you're pushing back. The same time you're pushing up like this 2-year-old, and then you're falling down. Good. Once you have that set up, you want to start to bring the hands up, facing the center of your heart. And you're going to relax as if you are floating in warm water. Remember the breathing in slowly, fully, the light, and exhaling out eternally. You're embracing a huge column of light. So you want to become a container for this huge column of light. Relax everything around it. How can, again, the concept of permanence, how can you be permanently around this column of light? If you're very stiff, you're not going to be there for long, right? So you want to start to find a way to soften all of your tissues around this column of light. Use your breath work. You can bend your legs a little bit to this down. So you can see me. I want to bend the knees a little bit. And so we're becoming a container for a huge column of light. The feeling is as if you're floating in warm water. There's a weightlessness to your arms. This is called the tree posture. So imagine trees don't get tired by holding their branches up. Energy of their trunk is coming through the branches. And relax everything down. When your feet start growing roots down into the ground, relax your breathing. Just hold it for a little longer. And it's always with eyes open, looking into the palms of your hands. Palms of the hands are looking into your heart. Okay, we're going to release slowly. Come out of the posture. Whenever you do come out of the posture, do it extremely slow motion. Relax breathing. Okay, good. So yes, this posture, Taoist monks hold it for 4 hours a day. So if you do this, this is very grounding. This is very powerful. There is more instruction for the relaxing the shoulders, but you want to you have an understanding, a general understanding of the posture, and you can do it. Okay, so Maricela, can you just go to the last slide, and we're pretty much closing now. And this is the message I want to leave you with, that I like to send to my students often. So watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And I'm going to stay on for questions. And I think Maricela, everyone's been sharing, they can share some of my website. So if anyone is interested to continue further in the practice, I'm very happy to share that with you. And yeah, feel free to contact me, anyone who has questions. And yes, Tlazokamati, thank you, Maritza. And yeah, I'm going to answer questions. So yeah, we can end the presentation, and because somehow I can't see everyone, which is unfortunate. But yes, we can end the presentation. Yeah, there's they're recording it on YouTube. It's been on YouTube Live, so yes, you can definitely find that information. Let's see, I'm just looking through the messages because I wasn't able to. Yeah, there's some good questions here about addressing our ancestors. Yeah, you don't have to have a name or image. You can really just close your eyes and think of that pure light. There has to be someone in our lineage that was like that. So you want to start to know them, to make a dialogue with them. There are many techniques for this. Ancestral healing is one of them that I would recommend. I think that each of us can do it though. Also, yeah, so we have, how do we work with toxic, problematic people? Like, this is the way. So if we connect to that ancestral light, ask, those people who are about to reach enlightenment to reach it, and then pull up all of the other ones. Because we cannot go and try to resolve something for somebody that was broken, even in our family. Like, how can we resolve it? Sometimes we have to not be there next to them, right? Sometimes you have to be away. But if you start to concentrate on these kind of links, and also fortify yourself. So we have to fortify ourselves. So this is why I teach my practice, and this is why I taught you some tools today, that you can start to gain back your power. Yeah, this is what I can say about that. Of course, there's a lot more to say. I want to, if you reach out to me, I'm going to make a list of people who are interested in doing some of the constellation work that I had mentioned, because I want to start to do them at least once a month. And so yeah, if you're interested in that, I have more tools for that, to go deeper into maybe healing even concepts, the way that we see things. Yeah, okay, let's see. I'm checking out the questions here. Give me a moment. There's So many. Oh, yes. Yeah, an altar for your ancestors, how to build an altar for your ancestors. You can, I suggest that you can maybe, sometimes your ancestors can be plants, right? So maybe your altar has a certain plants there. Also, maybe there's a connection that you have to an object, because some of us maybe are don't know where we came from, right? And that's valid, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the information inside you to know. So this is why you have to be able to have this awareness, right? That we talked about in Carlos Castaneda's quote, a body awareness, an awareness. Start to tap into that. So when you're opening up that awareness, you're going to start to have like a different way to read. You know, go to, especially be around nature, because the plants are your ancestors, right? So then you can start to tap into the earth, to the land, to the elements. You can do your practice, the one I just taught you, the standing stance in any park, anything, any place that you like. You know, I like to go sometimes to places with a view. So you can do that and then start to tap into that. Something will start to open up. You will know. Let's see. Oh, about my teachers from Mexico. Yeah, Mixteco, medicine man. I have also many other teachers in the peyote tradition, especially from North America. Yeah, many familiar faces too. Yeah, yes, this definitely can practice. This practice can heal us from becoming a person who is spreading toxicity, bringing past traumas. Yes. Okay, so if we know that we fall into this pattern, we have a responsibility, right? So remember this concept of permanence. What do you want to leave behind? Do you want to leave behind that poison and reproduce it if you're conscious of it, or do you want to change that? It's in your hands, right? So the people who are going to stay that way, they're going to stay that way, but you want to start to give yourself tools. And those tools for me have to do with deep practices of awareness of the body. So I don't think that necessarily something in the gym or something can help you. Like you need to have like long time practices that have a code in it. There's a code and there's a hacking method, right? So for me, Baguazhang has that. It's connected to Buddhist and Taoist monks. It has to do with these practices that came from these temples, right? And then they are spread into like the way that it's taught is also important. You have to know where it's taught, not because, you know, like you think, oh, Shaolin Kung Fu, I'm going to do that. But Shaolin Kung Fu tradition has been very much now been exploited, been lost. It's now like very performative. So you have to be very careful who you learn from, if they are addressing their teachers, right? Because if you get into something where you want to heal yourself, but then you go into some new age tradition where they're not even addressing their teachers, that's not good. You know? That's like reproducing, again, this kind of poison. So yeah, we want to be very careful with how we're doing that. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions. I try to answer as much as possible. But yeah, feel free to contact me. There's information there that has been, I'll just put it in here again. This is my website. Okay, so, sorry, Oxy Arts, I'm gonna put it. Okay, and then my IG, I think it's Yunuen Rhi. I don't know. I think they shared it at the beginning, but you can certainly look at like Oxy's webpage. Also, I'm on the In Plain Sight Maps project. There's more information about me. I just gave you the link to my my webpage, my Instagram. You can feel free to contact me. And oh yeah, there you go. Thank you, Kyle. And yeah, so if there's any other questions, you think of something else, if you're interested in other offerings that I do, feel free to contact me, and I'll also, yeah, post things on my website and on some of the social media about some upcoming offerings that I do if I do the constellation work. So yeah, very, very thankful to everyone. Thanks, Oxy. Thanks, Kyle, for everything. And yeah, everyone have a beautiful day. And yeah, remember permanence in your words and actions. Well, yes. Okay, well, I think that I'm not sure if there's more.
Thank you so much. I'll just come back on really quick to say that there is a live recording of this workshop that will be available on our YouTube page. Our YouTube page is at Oxy Arts. So stay tuned for that in the coming days. And thank you so much for joining us. Follow us on Instagram to find out more about our upcoming programming. And we'll see you soon.